Test. Okay, I'm up. Good. So what I'm going to do now is talk about the HTML5 boilerplate uh, resource and the mobile boilerplate as well. This is the assignment called Boiler here. And so just going to cover what I know, what I've observed about these two templates. These are basically two templates or starting points for web page development projects. After working with a mobile boilerplate, I have to say that I'm a little disappointed. I couldn't get it to work in Android, and I made a note about that here. So I really have kind of stopped working with the mobile boilerplate, and but I've continued to look at the HTML5 boilerplate and use that in some of my work. So let's go ahead and look at that. So if you go to the site, you'll see that you can download this. That's version 4.0.0. I have a copy that I believe it's right here, and I'm just going to open that up. So I have that downloaded already. And here's the folder that I've decompressed. All right, let's take a look in here. We've got some lots of stuff in here, lots of files, and there's folders, subfolders as well. Here's a folder called CSS that contains main.css and normalized.css as two separate CSS files. Normalized CSS, that is in fact a CSS library that you can get from the web. And I have a link to that here, normalize.css. I think it's a fairly widely acknowledged and used library. And what it does is it had some settings, basic style sheet settings, that help to make web pages look uniform as possible across the various browsers. And so that's useful for that purpose. And so that file is in here now. Main.css is CSS code that comes with the boilerplate specifically. It's not a library that the boilerplate authors have added, like normalized.css. This is an external library that's been added to the boilerplate project. Let's take a look at both of these. I'm going to open this with Text Wrangler. And let's see, this is the main.css. It mentions HTML5 boilerplate here. And opinionated defaults for what are the good base styles. So you can see there are these selectors, one after another, 5 different selectors, and they're given a color of 222. So that's a gray. That's a light gray. And then for the body element, the font size is set to 1 EM. That would be the size of a, I believe that's the size of an uppercase M. And I don't quite understand what that means, but I believe it's not sure how to understand that, but that's there. This, by the way, this ties in with the normalize.css file. I want to show that to you. Let me open that with Text Wrangler as well. If you look here and look at the HTML element right there, and there is a comment here, number 1. So the HTML element, which is your root element for an HTML document, is given a style rule that sets the font size to 100%. And then the note is up here, number 1, that this setting corrects the text resizing oddly. I guess that's odd text resizing. I'm not sure what that means. in Internet Explorer 6 and 7, when the body font size is set using EM units. Look at that. So when you set the body font size using EM units, something bad happens in Internet Explorer version 6 and 7. And this particular font size setting here on the HTML element corrects the problem that arises when the body element has font size specified in EM units. And as you can see, that's in fact what we're doing right here. We have the body element which has a font size specified in EM units. So you can see the interaction between the boilerplate CSS and normalized.css. If you go down the list, you can read about all these different things. That it's nice to have explanations that are useful to read. And this is nice. Let me try to expand that out a little. Yep, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's see if I can grab that. Cannot resize that. And close that. Whoops. Oh, there it is. That's what I wanted to do. And I want to grab this edge here. Sorry about that, folks. There we go. Okay. And this is normalized.css. That's not what I want. I want main.css. There we go. And look in here. Where is it? This image. So vertical align is set to middle. Remove the gap between images and the bottom of their containers. And this is something that does that. And look at this. This must be a blog post that talks about that issue. So I really enjoy the references that are provided in these files. A few CSS recommendations. So you go down through here. Apparently the authors of the boilerplate, HTML5 boilerplate, have been impressed with this recommendation in here and has picked that up. But I don't see there's a discussion about it in here, which I'm not going to read. I see this is the vertical align bottom. Is that what in fact we're using? That's vertical align middle. So apparently the boilerplate authors think this is a better setting. But that helps with the placement of images inside of their containers. All right, let's see. Lots of other stuff in here. These are, once again, these are the opinionated defaults. And we can, this once again, the boilerplate is a starting point. We can modify any of these. All right, let's see, I just want to, let's take a look at that. Look at this select, or no, is it button? Let's look at button. It's got a base color. I don't get that. It's a gray. So that means the button would be rendered in gray. Let me take a look at that. Here's the file. This is the main file that is the starting point for the web page. This would be loaded by the browser. This has references to all of these other objects. I'll open that up in Text Wrangler as well. And look down here, Google Analytics. This script here results in an interaction with Google, which is fantastic resources. Google Analytics you can keep track of through Google. It's free, at least it has been free for me. with my type of kind of usage. But it lets you keep track of the traffic that are going to your sites. And you get a code, you create an account, you get a code. In fact, you need to replace this, this ID with your Google Analytics account ID. So that would be done in here. And as you can see here, there is, this does cause, oh, look at this. There is, and this is hard to read, and I've never really tried to parse this, but this does result in an interaction with the Google Analytics resource. And I want to say that my experience is that slows things up when you don't have a valid account ID in there. So I'm not going to place my account ID in there. This is an invalid account ID. If I didn't comment this out, it would, in some situations, the web page never stops loading because it's waiting for this. I would call it. This looks like some sort of an AJAX interaction. That request never really completes in a timely manner. So I'm going to comment that out. And now, what was I getting at here? Yeah, I'm looking at this here. You can see this is a protocol protocol-less URL specification, and although we could open up the page in through a locally running web server, and we won't have any trouble with this. But if we open the page through the file system, that's not going to work. But that's not an issue, because if this fails, which it will fail by opening the file up through the file system, that if that fails, then this jQuery object will not be created in the global scope. In other words, it will not be a property of the window object. So a variable that's given global scope is also a property of the window object. So we test to see if window.jQuery equates to false in this comparison operation. This, in fact, if this line fails, then window.jQuery will resolve to undefined. And undefined is interpreted as false when the interpreter evaluates this OR operation. So if this is interpreted to false, it means the OR operation, the result of this OR operation, cannot be determined without evaluating the right-hand side of that expression, which is here. Now, the right-hand side of the expression is not much of an expression at all. It's a bit of a clever piece of code that we just want it to run for the purpose of getting its side effects, which is to write in this script element. And what this script element does is it refers to a local copy of jQuery, which can be loaded through the file system. So in fact, we can leave this. It's kind of a clever little trick there. So the way that this is set up, that we can make use of the protocol-less URL that has our clients retrieve the jQuery library from Google's content distribution network. But if we are in fact testing locally, or if the content distribution network is down, or if we're testing locally through the file system, then that will fail, and we'll be able to load a local copy. Let me show you that local copy is in there. So this is a folder JS and has a subfolder called vendor, and we should see the jQuery library inside there. Let's verify that that's the case. Here we are. We have the JS folder. There's a vendor subfolder, and there is the jQuery library right there. That's great. So now we understand this this bit of cleverness. Of course, after that, we're not. This is these are retrieved locally. So these references here, there's no protocol involved here. There is and these paths will. There's no host name rather, and so these because these files are located in the same host as the HTML file is, unlike the jQuery library that's loaded through the content distribution network. So we don't have that issue with these JavaScript files that are stored alongside with the HTML file on the same host. And let's see. There's the first one is a file called plugins, and I would guess that this contains plugins written by the boilerplate authors that are jQuery plugins. And then following that is what I think I remember being an empty file. So this would be your starting point that you would drop your JavaScript code inside main.js. Let's take a look at that. Let me go to the file system. This is plugins.js. Open with Text Wrangler and main.js. Open in Text Wrangler as well. Once again, I got that right. I remembered that correctly. That's in fact empty. And plugin.js. It looks like it has a single plugin added here. And then there's a comment down here. Place any jQuery helper plugins in here. So we can add extra jQuery plugins. In fact, plugins that we write ourselves can be placed in there. Well, let's take a look at the plugin that they have. Okay, so there's a comment that explains what it is that this plugin does. It says avoid console errors in browsers that lack a console. So I'll assume that what the authors have discovered is that the console property of the window object would not be defined in browsers that lack a console, but would be defined in browsers that do have a console. But actually, we're checking two conditions. We want to check that window.console is not undefined. In other words, it doesn't evaluate to false. Because if window.console were to be false, if the window.console were to be undefined, then this would be interpreted as false for the purpose of evaluating this Boolean operation here. And so the whole the evaluation of this entire expression would be short-circuited. That's the term they use, because if this left-hand side is false, then the entire expression will in fact be false. No reason to look at that. If window, on the other hand, if window.console is defined, that means in the context of this Boolean operation, this is interpreted as true. If this is true, we still need to evaluate the right-hand side of this expression to see if that is also true. If that's also true, the whole expression evaluates the true. If the right-hand side is false, the whole expression evaluates the false, in the case that the left-hand side is true. So if console is, in fact, not undefined, then we want to make sure that the console has a log property. So if log property does not exist, this is undefined and interpreted as false. So if this expression returns to false, that means the browser lacks a console with a log property. And so if that's false, we're going to negate that out here so that we will execute this this bit of kind of fix-up code, right? Or I could call it, I think they might call it a polyfill. So if the log doesn't exist, let's go ahead and carry out this this logic here. Now, what does this exactly do? We'll look at it here. Here's an opening parenthesis, and that matches with this parenthesis right there. And I don't see exactly why that would be there like that. Let me try to understand that. This function, this is an anonymous function. Its definition includes these lines. And those lines are sandwiched in between this opening brace and this closing brace. So this whole business right here that I've highlighted exactly is the definition of this anonymous function, just some function. Okay, so this code here that I have highlighted, when this is processed by the JavaScript interpreter, that it simply creates a definition of the function. It doesn't run the function. It creates a definition of the function. After the definition of the function is created, we in fact run it with this syntax right there. And so this expression causes the definition of an anonymous function, and then that definition is immediately run. The function is immediately called. And then it's not called from any point on. Now, the thing that I don't know, that I don't understand, is why are these parentheses on the outside here? I don't see the reason for that. And that'd be great if someone could explain that to me. Let's see. So what does the function do? Now, you know, by the way, I want to say, why would you even do this? Why not just put these lines in there and have these run? Well, the reason is you don't want the authors don't want these variable declarations. They don't want these variables to be promoted to the global scope. And so what we do is we scope these variables to the scope of this anonymous function, and run the function, and thereby keep from exposing these variables to the global scope, because it's not known. Maybe no-op or methods are global variables that our separate JavaScript creates and uses and manipulates, or they may be global variables that are in some kind of a, say, poorly designed library, and so we don't want those to be promoted to the global scope. That's the trick for this. Let's see. What we do, we create a function here. We're defining a function that does nothing. It's just a function. We call it no-op, or no operation. So we can call no-op and it does nothing. It's just an empty function. And then we create an array. And I'm just going to put a return in there so I can see that these are a list of method names, and I believe these are I don't know where these method names come in, but there is in fact a big a list of strings, and it's called methods, right? So these would be perhaps the methods that are going to be would normally be available on this log object. I'm not sure. I'm just thinking that here. So we've got no-op defined. It's a function that does nothing. We have a sequence of strings, which will look like method names. And then we have a length. And the length is simply the number of strings that we have in this methods list. That's how many methods we have defined. And then finally we have this console variable, and the console variable is set equal to what? It's equal to the results of that assignment. So this is an example where we don't do left to right evaluation of the expression, we do right to left evaluation. So we have an assignment operator. This assignment is done first. And what does that assignment do? Well, it takes the window object and it adds to the window object a property called console, and it sets it equal to an instance of a new object, and that object is empty. It has no attributes. And so this creates, one of two things happen here. If console is undefined, which would be caught here, if console is undefined, it defines console and sets it to an empty object. However, it's possible that console could be defined here, but that the console that is defined does not have a log property. In that case, this pre-existing console object is overwritten. The reference to that console object is overwritten with a new object that we're putting in its place, which is an empty object. And the result of this assignment, of course, is what's on the right-hand side here, which is the empty object. So this empty object is assigned to this var console here, to console. This is just a trick. We could have omitted this part right here. And this is just a way to have a shorter way of referring to this empty console object rather than writing window.console everywhere. So right here we could write window.console and we could eliminate this variable declaration. So we've created this empty console object, and then we enter into this while loop. So this while loop will tick through each index. So the first thing we do is the length of this list, and then then we in the while loop, when we go to evaluate the expression, we first decrement length. So that gives us, the first time we enter the loop, we get the index of the last element in the list, and if that is non-zero, then we will do this. But if we decrement length and we get 0, then this will evaluate to false, and we will discontinue the loop. Now the subtle thing here is that this is the index. Assert this string here is at index position 0, and we would want this this statement to execute when length reached 0. But this is a postfix operation. So what we do is first we use length. This doesn't make any sense to me. I wonder if in fact this is the correct loop. So we use a length, and let's see. So what do we do here? So we first we use length in the expression in which it appears. So this becomes this is, say, some lengthy thing, and then it's evaluated to true because it's non-zero, and so this while loop, the body of the while loop executes. So which would be, I suppose, the next operation. So I've actually never seen this idiom before, but it looks like it works. But before we execute this next line, we're going to apply the result of the postfix decrement, and so length becomes length becomes the index of the last element. So that will actually iterate through all of the elements of the list and execute this line for each valid array index. I've never seen this before. It's pretty clever. So what do we do? Okay, let's suppose that length is the index of the warn string. Then what we do here is we have an assignment. Okay, so we're going to, this empty string, sorry, it's an empty function called no-op, no operation. We take that empty function and we store it in the console object. Now the console is also an empty object, and so what this expression does is it creates a new attribute which has this name. So this would be, if length were to be the index of warn, that means that methods of length becomes the string warn, and so the console object gains an attribute called warn, and that attribute is set to this no-op function. So in other words, these methods, if you know, in browsers that provide a console, that these are the methods that are supported in the log object, the log property of the console object. And so we want to make sure, so that our code doesn't break, we want to make sure that all of these functions are defined on our console object. And so we add those right here. Actually, I don't see anything related to log here. So if log doesn't, you see, if console exists, but log does not exist, then we're going to go ahead and recreate the console object. So at this point, we don't do anything with log, although log does appear in the string. So we're redefining the log property as a no operation. So that's what's going on there. It takes a while to read through this, but once you learn some of the idioms of JavaScript, it gets a lot easier. I'm going to close that out. That's the plugins of JavaScript. Do you want to save changes? I do not want to save any of my changes. And this is main.js. Let me take a look at where we were in the index.html file. All right, this is so here we load jQuery. Here we load the plugins, and then finally we load and run our JavaScript. And look at the body element here. Some things to notice about this, that you'll see in a lot of sample code that these script definitions will in fact be placed in the head, and that would be the normal way of doing things. There is one script definition placed up here, by the way, which is right there. This is Modernizer. I'll talk about that in a minute. But these script definitions are in fact delayed, and they're placed at the bottom of the body element. And and Google's analytics script is also placed down there as well. And the reason for placing these down here, I believe, is that we want as much of the HTML interpreted, processed, and used to populate the document object model before we get to any more scripts down here. Now, jQuery doesn't require that your script elements be placed late. They can be placed up here, and you have to make sure that any initialization that you do that depends on the DOM being created, that be done inside a callback function that you pass into jQuery's ready function. But if you place your scripts down here, I believe you could cheat and try to manipulate the DOM before jQuery's ready method runs, but that it is perhaps safe because your script is loaded after all of the elements in the body have been defined. So that's just a conjecture. I didn't write this design, and I didn't read about that either. That's just my guess at why these are appearing down here inside the bottom of the body element rather than inside the head section. And I have seen, this is a pattern that I have seen in other sample code, so it may be an emerging pattern to do this. And now this is just, so look at our body element. In addition to, to these script declarations here, we have a single paragraph. So it just says, hello world, this is HTML5 boilerplate. And so if we open up this file, we should see that. Let's go ahead and do that. Hello world, this is HTML5 boilerplate. Now as we experiment with this, I'm going to want to look at the JavaScript console to catch errors. Now look at this, failed to load resource. File, Ajax, see this is an error message. And also failed to load this resource, which is analytics. Here, I don't know why that's running, but this was expected. This was sort of the file is the code, the file, the template, the boilerplate template, in fact, designed to accommodate this situation. So we just discussed that. That was an expected failure because we're opening through the file system. So this is this script, this src attribute is not interpreted correctly, and because this whole URL is used to try to retrieve through the file system a resource which is not there, and so that means that we write this this script element into the document at this point as a result, so we can in fact recover. But that other error message I wasn't really expecting. Failed to load resource, file, www, Google Analytics. Maybe I didn't properly comment that out. This is commented out, so I don't know. It's still running this script. That's the thing. This comment is not valid. I think there's an old days that the script element would cause pages to be very poorly rendered. The script would just be dumped out into the web page. So what they did is they put the script element inside comments. They embedded the script element inside a comment, but the later browsers would ignore the comments and process that script element. So I think what we can do is simply take the script element out by making comments in this manner. This is a better way to comment that out. Let's go ahead and save this and reload and see that we eliminated this one failure here. And that is exactly as expected. Very good. Now, let's go back and this whole thing right here, this hello world. I'm going to show you one style of web page development that I have been experimenting with, and that is to omit everything from the HTML file except for the script, and basically build your web page from JavaScript completely. And I'm just going to go ahead and experiment with that, and I do want to talk about Modernizer as well. We did talk about normalize a little bit. This is our CSS file here, and there's some other boilerplate code up here related to other things. And this is something that's worth looking into deeply and thinking about. I don't have all the answers. I haven't done all the research that I would like to do on this well-crafted template. So I took that out. Let's see, I grabbed that, and then I want to build the site through JavaScript directly. And I'll use jQuery. So we get the jQuery's document object, call its ready method, and at this point we are in fact safe to manipulate the document. And what we'll do is we'll say start with the body element, which looks like this. I need to make that a string. This is a selector. That's a CSS selector. We pass that into the jQuery function, and what we get is the jQuery body element. And what we can do is append some new HTML. And the HTML that we can append is something like, say, a div that says hi. Let's do it like that. There it is, hi, just like that. I'll save this. Let's see if that runs. And unexpected token, line 1. And so we have an issue here. Let's see, that's a $document. And I don't quite understand what's going on. Unexpected token, opening brace in main.cs. So, oh, I see the problem right there, of course. Now what we need to do is pass this, define a function. Sorry, I didn't get that right. I create an anonymous function and pass that function into the ready method. And this closes the ready method right there. That parenthesis closes off with this parenthesis. Let's try that. There it is. There's the hi, and there are no error messages, other than the one failure that we had already planned on. So basically, we can start building the element, the document here. And let me show you a little bit more about this. What we can do is create let's create an object, an HTML object, which is through jQuery, and this is the procedure right here. I'm just going to show that to you. So we take we call jQuery, and we pass into it not a selector, but an HTML element definition. This causes jQuery to create, or this asks jQuery to create a div element. And then what we do is we get the wrapper. It returns the jQuery element wrapper around that newly created div element, and we assign it to this variable, which we're going to call div. I'm going to do something a little more. Now, $sign is a valid character to use in names of variables and names of functions. That's why we could use $sign by itself as a synonym for the jQuery object, or the jQuery function. Functions are objects. And now what we do is we write it with $div. So we're not invoking $sign. We'd have to do something like that, right? That's where we would be passing div into $sign. But now we're using a $sign as the leading character of a variable name called $sign div. And we give it that name as a reminder that this variable refers to a jQuery object. And so it makes it easier to read the code. It's just a reminder that that variable, in fact, represents a jQuery object. So we can now pass that inside of this append method on body. And of course, that's an empty div. And if we want to, we can insert HTML content into that div. I'll say I am new, like that. I am new. Now take a look. The order doesn't matter. So if I move this up here, I want to get the same result. I am new. And that's because we can this statement right here, this creates the div object. This statement right here inserts the div object or appends the div object as a child of the body element. The div element is appended as a child to the body element. The div element is made a child, the pre-existing div element is made a child of the body element. And, well, that div element, we could have set its HTML before we did the append, or we could set its HTML after we did the append. It doesn't matter. In fact, we could do something like this, just to see how that might work. If we do div dot click, this is a click handler that we attach to the div element. And let's take a look at how we can add a click handler to the div element. I'll do alert, and I'll just say, bye. So now we're attaching a click handler to the div element, the one div element that's in the document. I'll save that and then load. There's the div element. Now I'm going to, there it is. There's the div element. I'm going to click it, and there's the bye. Now watch this. I am new. I'm going to change this. Instead of popping up a box, I'm going to take the div element and I'm going to change its content to I am old. And watch that. I'll reload. I am new. When I click it, what will happen is we'll change its content to I am old. There it is. Just to show you a little bit about how you, in fact, can manipulate the web page in JavaScript by using this, they call it the DOM API. Right? And it's very convenient to use jQuery because it simplifies the task of manipulating the web page. Now you can do all of this, everything that we saw right now, we could implement it directly with the JavaScript interface provided by the browser. We don't need jQuery. It's just that the code will be bigger, messier, harder to read. jQuery adds a layer on top of that existing standardized JavaScript API that's available in one form or another across all the browsers. It adds a layer, it simplifies the interaction, it also makes the interaction uniform. It removes differences between browsers. So actually, when, say, this append operation runs in Internet Explorer, it might actually do something a little differently than when it runs in Firefox. I don't know if that's the case, but just hypothetically, there are cases where some of the functionality in jQuery runs differently because of the browser it's running in. It has a different version of the JavaScript API. So jQuery, one of the great benefits that you get from a JavaScript library like jQuery and others, Dojo and the other JavaScript libraries, is that it allows you to write your code in a single way against the JavaScript library, and let the JavaScript library handle differences in how JavaScript is implemented across the different browsers. And let's see if there's anything more that I want to talk about here. I'm going to go back to the boilerplate. Some other things, just Modernizer, I'm just going to briefly talk about that. Let's, in fact, this is minimized. Okay, so we can't read it. I'll just prove that to you. We can't read it easily. So under JS and vendor, you'll see Modernizer, and that's minified. So that won't be easy to understand. So rather, let's go ahead and look at click at the library and to read about it. That's going to close that out. Let's see if there's anything in the documentation about that Modernizer library. And they have something called doc here. Look at this. Maybe it's in here. This is nice. This MD is Markdown. And there's no application set to open that, and I'll just set that to I'll set it to Text Wrangler, but I'm not sure that Text Wrangler can render that. Where is the Text Wrangler? There it is. I'll try that. Let's see if it renders that. This is the Markdown script, so it doesn't interpret the Markdown script, just shows it to us. So there's some documentation that you can read, and you know, what's in plugins.js, what's in main.js, and so on. That's the whole file. Okay. Vendor, what's in there, and then we have Modernizer. Minified versions of the latest jQuery and Modernizer libraries. And so if you go to Modernizer, let's just look at Modernizer and look at their documentation. We don't have to open their source code, although we could, right? And that's worth doing. But I'm going to skip over that. Let me paste that in there. All right, why use Modernizer? What Modernizer is, it's a feature detection library. That's what it does. It gives you a way to find out if a feature is supported or not. And let's say they have documentation getting started here. This is the list of features, but probably what you want to do is start in here and read through this. Now, polyfills, it doesn't provide any polyfills. What Modernizer does is it tells you when you need to load a polyfill, and it gives you a mechanism to load a polyfill in a clean way. And so, what a polyfill is that if you want to use a recent kind of feature that comes in HTML5, or just a recent feature that a lot of browsers implement, you use Modernizer to detect that the feature is missing. If the feature is missing, you can then optionally load a JavaScript library that tries to emulate that feature, tries to create the behavior, it tries to make your browser environment behave as if that feature were natively supported. And which is, and actually it's surprising about how many polyfills exist. You really can get a lot of missing features to emulate them in older environments. And I did some recent experiments on that with local storage, and I may create a separate video to talk about that. But this is what you would do this is the load method. So Modernizer provides this load method, and this is what you use to load a polyfill. And this is the load method here. And we test to see if geolocation is supported. So we say that we call the load method, and we pass in this object, and that the object has a test parameter, and that's the feature that the load method should test for the existence of. So if geolocation is supported, then this is I think that it evaluates to true. Then the load method does nothing. But if geolocation is not supported, then the test fails. And in that case, the nope file is loaded. Oh, I see. So if the test succeeds, if geolocation is in fact present, then that would be the yes. Then we're going to load our own code that makes use of geolocation. And if geolocation is not supported, then we're going to load this other code, which relies on a polyfill. So it gives us a way of trying to get a backwards compatibility while writing our website code against HTML5 in particular. So modern features. It's very nice, very expressive to use HTML5. But you want that expressive code to run not only in modern browsers, but to run in the older browsers. So you do have to add the missing polyfill, add the polyfills for missing features on the old browsers that you want to support. So Modernizer's got a fantastic kind of approach to doing this, and I do highly recommend that that you read through this. I think this library is particularly significant and perhaps just as important as or more important than jQuery even. So this is very well, I don't know if that's the case, but anyway, it is. I find it to be a fantastic library, and I do feel that it is useful. So that's Modernizer, and let's see. I'm going to go back to Text Wrangler. Going to look at the document main.js, sorry, index.html, and there's some other business going on up here. And if you look through, these meta tags, for instance, if you want to get an explanation of why these tags are as they are, then what you can do is look in the documentation. So, for instance, meta. Let's see if I can find that. That would be miscellaneous. This is HTML. Let's open up HTML. And they talk about the Node.js class, which is a part of Modernizer. And I think here's the explanation of the meta. Why is this this meta tag included? This meta tag tells the Internet Explorer rendering engine two things. It should use the latest or Edge version of the Internet Explorer rendering environment, and if already installed, it should use the Google Chrome frame rendering engine. So that's and it goes on here to explain that. So there's a lot of documentation in here. It's a very very nice template for starting new projects. So I think I'm going to stop at that point just to get you started. You really do need to do a lot of experimentation, just like the way that I was doing with playing around. You can change the CSS. You can add a lot of jQuery and a lot of code to build out your site and see how it works. So I think that'll finish it up right there. All right.